Good morning and welcome to Cyber Safe in the Gigabit City version 4.0. My name is Wes Hill. I'm the Acting Dean of Business and Applied Technologies, as well as Dean of Continuing Education here at Wilson Community College. We thank you for taking time to join us. We also welcome you to October. It's Cybersecurity Awareness Month. We hope you come away from this event with a much better knowledge of how to keep yourself cyber safe. I'd like to welcome Dr. Tim Wright, President of Wilson Community College, to give a few words.
Thank you, Wes. Good morning, everybody. I see, I think we have almost 50 participants online right now. I'd like to thank Wes and Kendra Faulkner particularly. I know there were probably a lot of other people involved in making this event happen, but I always say anytime an event goes off well, whether it's in person or online, it's like an iceberg. You only see the 10% event part, and the 90% of the work that made it possible is usually not seen by the participants. So thanks to all our folks who helped to put this on, and thank all of you for joining us. I don't want to take up much of your time, just to say we're happy to host you through Wilson Community College. I believe, Wes, this is the 4th such event, is it not?
Yes, sir.
So that's long enough to call it a tradition for me, and I hope it continues well into the future. I'm 65 years old, so I'm well old enough to remember the mid 90s, I guess, when the internet really got going, 94, 95, somewhere along there, it's sort of amazing that, you know, within my adult lifetime, not just my lifetime, but in my adult lifetime, we have come to rely so thoroughly on cybersecurity. That cybersecurity, in the space of really a couple of decades, has become one of the central concerns in all our lives, whether we're directly concerned, whether we're directly involved in maintaining cybersecurity or not. It's a concern right up there almost with our physical safety that all of us are concerned with all the time. So I don't have to tell the people at this event how important it is and how important it is for all of us to stay on the front lines of that challenge and to stay ahead of those who would use that great technology to do us harm. So thank you all for your participation today. And I hope you have a great event and learn a lot and come back next year.
Thank you, Dr. Wright, for those words. This year's program is dedicated to the memory of Gene Scott. Gene was a longtime City of Wilson Greenlight employee who passed away earlier this year. He was an ardent supporter of the college and of our IT program. He was a pioneer both locally and regionally in the field of telecommunications and fiber optic broadband. One of his many strengths was his ability to think outside the box and provide solutions where solutions were not readily apparent. While many of us miss him greatly, his fingerprints are all over the college in many forms, including being one of the original contributors to creating this event 4 years ago. As you can tell, Wilson Community College has a long-standing relationship with the City of Wilson, Greenlight, and Gigabit Exchange. This extends to our information technology certificate and degree programs, where members of their staff serve on our IT advisory board, assist with credit and non-credit program changes, assist with internships and job opportunities for students. We are especially grateful to Will Aycock and Brittany Smith for their support and continued sponsor of this program. I'd like to also extend my personal thanks to Kendra Faulkner, who is the brainchild and organizer of this event, and to Michael Forbes for making sure the technical side of this event is in working order. It's a pretty safe assumption that we all know someone who has been affected by some type of cybersecurity attack. According to the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, 1 in 3 homes have a computer that's been affected by malware. Additionally, 47% of all Americans have had their personal information exposed by cyber criminals, and 60,000 Facebook accounts are hacked every single day. This is why this program provides such an important discussion. We hope that this gives you an opportunity to learn how to protect yourself from a cyber attack, especially as cyber criminals find new ways to prey on businesses and individuals. This year's keynote speaker is Alex Reinwald. Mr. Reinwald is the Division Chief for the Cyber Threat Intelligence Division for the North Carolina National Guard Cybersecurity Response Force. His previous duty assignments include Japan, South Korea, Arizona, and Alaska. He holds a bachelor's degree in geography from the University of Alabama and a master's in geographic information science and technology from NC State University. He has twice led the fusion and intelligence cell for the largest unclassified cyber incident response exercise in the United States. He currently holds a number of certifications: GIAC Certified Incident Handler, GIAC Penetration Tester, GIAC Cyber Threat Intelligence, and GIAC Information Security Professional SANS certifications. Mr. Reinwald, thank you for being here today and welcome to Wilson Community College. The floor is yours.
All right, thank you so much for those kind words of welcome. Really do also want to just reiterate what Dr. Wright said about Kendra doing a lot of heavy lifting, putting this together this year, as well as all the rest of the Wilson Community College staff who make this thing happen. So hopefully everyone can see my slides. I'm sure someone will let me know if they can't. But what I want to do today is just spend a little bit of time talking about some of the emerging cybersecurity threats that we see impacting the citizens of North Carolina, and then importantly, how to protect ourselves against it. So I know, this October, it's, Cybersecurity Awareness Month again, and rather than talking to y'all about, hey, think before you click, here's another phishing email, like Dr. Wright said, we've been dealing with cybersecurity threats for a little bit of time. So instead of that, I'd rather spend a little bit of time talking to y'all about how one particular type of malware works that we see impacting a lot of citizens, what it's doing, and how we can protect against it. So I'm going to talk a little bit about a particular type of malware that we see, unfortunately, all over the dark web, at least the results of it, so we can talk about defending it. So I'm going to talk about InfoStealer malware, and it's exactly what it sounds like. It is a program that our adversaries are using to go ahead and gather information from compromised devices. So this is going to be, I'm going to do a lot of graphics in this presentation. Please ask, any questions that you might have. I want to make sure that we all understand them. So this is going to be the wordiest slide that I've got, but Cisco Talos did a really good job of kind of breaking down how this particular type of malware works. So there are various variants because a lot of cyber threat groups realize that, hey, this stuff works really well. But I just kind of want to talk generally speaking about how it works, and then I'm going to deep dive into one particular type of malware. So really, just like most everything, one of the biggest weaknesses that cyber threat actors try to exploit is us. Humans are often the weakest link in any information security program because, we are just, not trained to recognize all of the little indicators that can give away, that something might be off. Things are evolving very quickly in terms of the information security space, as well as, just the internet in general, and things change all the time. Additionally, our threat actors, have really studied human psychology and how people work, and they're going to try to exploit what we know about that. So the kind of the basic attack path, or the kill chain as we like to call it, is generally speaking, a user, a person receives a link for a software installer. In this case that they're representing is through an online ad. Sometimes also it's just through a website we visit by mistake, or in some cases, a phishing link. Someone's like, hey, go ahead and install this update. So the user is going to go ahead and download that program because we think it's a legitimate program, and then it's going to do all sorts of evil stuff. And that's the stuff I'm going to talk about in a little bit. But the thing that we're most interested in is the password stealers and the Chrome extension installers or other internet browser installers that they're going to go ahead and add, often without our knowledge, and then it's going to start gathering data and sending it off to the user, the operator on the other end. So the big takeaway is a lot of this malware goes ahead and it just steals an enormous amount of information. So they're looking for things like usernames and passwords, because what these groups are counting on is us not having implemented, that multi-factor authentication like we all know we're supposed to have on our bank accounts and other accounts. And they're also counting on us to reuse our passwords. So what they want to do is they want us to go ahead and, use the same password across all our accounts, because what they're going to do is they're going to try that one username for all of your other accounts, that one password for all your other accounts, and see if it works. And then they're going to try and also steal, credit card information, increasingly cryptocurrency wallet information, and other information such as browser cookies. And then a lot of times they're going to go ahead and sell this data through underground markets. Generally, we see these marketplaces up on the dark web. So I'm going to show you all what that looks like in just a little bit. So this malware I was talking about. So one that I'm going to talk about today. So there's a lot of different types of variants of this malware, but one of the most prevalent ones that we see is called Redline Stealer. And what this is a type of malware that a group of developers have spent a lot of time and money in making this program. And then they go ahead and license this program out to whoever wants to buy it and use this software for criminal purposes. Additionally, hackers have hacked the hackers, as it were, and some people have cracked, just like thinking like jailbreaking an iPhone, they've cracked the software and used various versions of it that have kind of been distributed, and people can find them on various hacker forums or other places on the dark web. So the takeaway is, this was built by professionals, professionals in an illegal business, but there's professionalism around how these malware variants are developed, and they're widely available to people who kind of know the right places to look. So just kind of wanted to show you, what some of these advertisements look like. And then here I want to show you one of the real places that this was delivered from. So a lot of people may be familiar with the program Discord. It's a widely used communication messaging program that lots of different people use. A lot of gamers use it. I've used it to communicate with friends. Nothing wrong with that. But what our adversaries are counting on is us trying to download this. Maybe we got a link to download this and say, hey, go pull Discord. You'll notice that this has the little check mark or the lock that says, hey, this is a secure site. It's secure, it's just not legitimate, because we can see that this is discrodapp.com, which is not the actual one, but they went ahead and they stole the front page from the legitimate program. And they wanted you to go ahead and download this. A lot of times you'll download it, it'll redirect you to the right software. So you think that you've downloaded it and you don't see anything different, but it put a lot of other stuff on your computer as well. So here is the actual website. Looks pretty similar. We can see that it's named correctly right here. And we can go ahead and download it. So now that this malware has been downloaded onto our computers, it's going to start doing a whole bunch of stuff. And this right here is the end result of what it's going to do. So this is an image pulled from one of the underground marketplaces that this information sold on. So we can see that the stealer was Redline. They gave us a little information about the victim that they stole the information from. So they're not going to tell us the username and password, because that would be too easy, and we know to reset all our passwords and that we've gotten compromised. But they're going to give us some information about where it was stolen. They're going to give it to us in a zip file, all the information that they stole, when they stole it, how big it is, and who the vendor is, because a lot of these organizations work off reputation. So if they stole information that was useful to other criminals in the past, they've got a better reputation, and people are more willing to buy from them. So these compromised credentials and other information, they don't actually go for that much money. Per victim, the going rate is about $5 to $10. And a lot of times threat actors will kind of buy these in bulk with the hope that one of them is going to, give them access to something that's a little more valuable that they can then monetize further. So that's what the end result looks like. So what is this? This is the builder. So this is what your adversary is doing when they're going to say, this is all the stuff I want to steal from you, when they're making those malicious payloads that we just downloaded, say, for example, on that one site I showed you. So they're going to go ahead and get browser information. They're going to get file transfer clients, instant messaging clients, files, your VPN info. So if you use a virtual private network to log into privileged resources, they're going to try and steal those username and passwords. Wallets, maybe some of your actual Discord information. And then they're just specifying some other parameters that they want to steal. And then it's going to go ahead and get pulled into the panel view. So this is what the user could see if they've infected a bunch of different machines, or in this case, one machine. And we can see the data that's being exfiltrated, what we're getting, and if it's worth keeping up persistence on this machine. So, this is a little bit of the adversary's view of what it looks like. So, you can see they're looking for credit card information, passwords, all the stuff that we want to keep secret. And then, here we can see a little bit from this particular viewer where, they got some information about our computer, maybe with the zip code that it's in. You can see that they're looking for available keyboard layouts. So a lot of times, these cyber threat groups look for organizations that, they want to compromise organizations, say, in the United States. Maybe if they're working out of Russia, there's a general agreement that they're not going to target victims in their own countries, they'll target victims outside. So this computer that was compromised, not having some of those foreign language keyboards installed or keyboard layouts installed, it's an indicator to the adversary that this is a target that their government is going to turn a blind eye to as they go after. And that gives you a little information about the computer itself and what antivirus is running. So that's really important because if they're going to sell this information to someone else who maybe wants to do a ransomware attack, that organization is going to look for what are the antivirus software that they know how to get around. So that's going to kind of give them some information about their attack. And then, here's a little more information where we stole the cookies. So these are the little breadcrumbs that our browsers use to communicate between sites and store things. But they're going to go ahead and steal all this information to get more information about the victim, and then package it all nice and pretty up into a zip file that they're going to sell on the dark web. So, that's kind of the attack chain and the impact of what this particular type of malware has. And you can kind of see that a lot of times they don't necessarily know who they've targeted at the beginning. They're really, a lot of them are working on a quantity over quality type of operations. They're trying to get as many victims to download the software as possible, install it on their computers, so that they can kind of see what they've got with the hope that they can then further monetize that information for follow-on incidents. So a lot of times from what we've observed, there's a lot of targets of opportunity, and then they only know who they've compromised after they've got a foothold on your computer. Some of these tools make it easier to identify victims and find vulnerabilities. And then also, I hope you noticed that that software was pretty well developed. These groups have, as they've continued to become more profitable, they go ahead and hire interpreters because, if they don't necessarily understand the language of the computers they compromise, that can be helpful. That can also be helpful when they're selling information in underground marketplaces to interact with users or other criminals that don't necessarily speak the same language. Lawyers, they want to stay on the right side of the law in the countries they're working in, and they've got a pretty vested interest in staying out of jail. And then also they've got developers, so they have very talented people working for them and making these programs. They're not unsophisticated operations impacting users. There are advanced software engineers working for some of these criminal organizations. And also, we saw that with this one particular program, we saw just not necessarily ransomware gangs, or in addition to ransomware gangs, but also these info stealer gangs. They're essentially licensing out their software to other criminals that want to go ahead and leverage that for their own purposes. So I know I told you originally I wasn't going to tell you think before you click, but we really do need to think before we click, and just double checking. Our adversaries are counting on us to not pay attention. So if you get something that's out of the usual, out of the ordinary, it never hurts to pause for 5 seconds. They're counting on us to not take that time to pause. The second bullet is really important because we see a lot of this software being downloaded by individuals who want to download maybe unlicensed software, pirated software. I'm a big believer in if it's too good to be true, it is, or, in terms of some other, big tech companies, if you get to use the thing for free, you're the product. So when you download some software that someone has pirated and made available for free, there's probably a catch, and it's probably bundled with other malware. Use an antivirus and keep it up to date. That's really important. So, the major antivirus providers are really interested in keeping all of their detections up to date on this particular type of software because it impacts so many individuals. So using that antivirus and keeping it up to date is going to be one of your best protections. In the off chance that you accidentally click on something, it's going to identify that and quarantine it for you most of the time, right? These are all protections that we're layering together. And then the last thing I wanted to say is don't store your passwords in your browsers. Like Chrome has those password autofill. It's really great for convenience, but you really want to store your password somewhere that is encrypted or can't be accessed by this type of software. They've really spent a lot of time developing workarounds, as fast as say your browser developer protects it from one type of attack. They're researching security flaws in those others. So it's really good to use a respected password manager, so that way you can vary your passwords across all your services, and you kept them in a secure encrypted location. So that was really what I wanted to share today. And it's a great way to understand what our adversaries want to steal from us and how to defend against it, and kind of what to look out for. If you do think you've been the victim of InfoSteal or malware, I really recommend you go ahead and first reset all your passwords. Check sites like Have I Been Pwned to see if your password's been released anywhere that we know of, and go ahead and enroll all the services that you can in multi-factor authentication, because it makes it a lot more difficult for adversaries to go ahead and use the password against you, even if it was stolen.
Thank you, Dr. Wright and Wes. And thank you, Alex, for that excellent, highly relevant keynote. That is very shocking information about everyone's vulnerability to malware. And it's amazing how complex those criminal organizations are. I'm Kendra Faulkner, and I'm one of the information technology instructors at Wilson Community College. Oh, we actually have 2 Q&A questions. If our keynote or panelists would like to answer in just a moment. One question is, what is the best password manager to use? And the other question is, what is the best antivirus software?
So I'll go ahead and try to answer some of the questions that are in the Q&A right now. And if it seems like I'm tap dancing, I'm not. I just want to, generally speaking, we try to stay software agnostic from the National Guard's point of view. However, there are some things to consider about those 2 questions. So one question was, what is the best password manager? And then the second one was, what is the best antivirus software? So in terms of password managers, there's a variety of password managers out there. If I don't name one, it's not necessarily because I don't have a preference to it, but there's just a variety out there. There's some like KeePass, Google's password manager, LastPass as well. Generally speaking, when I evaluate those, I want to go ahead and look to see, are they storing my secrets in an encrypted manner? And that's going to be the top kind of priority for me. And then also, is there going to be an ability for me to back those secrets up somewhere, maybe to an external USB, or one way for me to recover them, but no one else to be able to recover them as well. And then looking at antivirus software. So once again, we're kind of staying software agnostic. A lot of the major antivirus vendors are all doing just about the same things. I will say that generally speaking, you're probably going to get more up-to-date protection from software that you pay for, because they're funding, it's their business model. There are a lot of really good free options out there, and I would generally say, like, any antivirus software, provided it's from a reputable source, is better than none. But you're probably going to get a little more responsive detections from either like a next-gen antivirus or some of the ones that are paid for. You don't necessarily need to break the bank paying for antivirus, but just making sure it's up to date is going to be really important. Hopefully that answers your question.
Thank you. Oh, it looks like we have one more question. If you have a Mac computer, do you need antivirus software?
So I can take that one as well. So the short answer is yes. So I know a lot of times people have said, seen, if you have a Mac, you don't have to worry about viruses. And I will say it is true that, most organizations have adopted, say, Windows infrastructure. So probably most malware is developed in ways that can kind of get the most bang for their buck in terms of compromising Windows infrastructure. But we've seen a pretty significant increase in developers, building really sophisticated and tailored, viruses or other types of malware that can specifically target, iOS software. Those security updates that your phone pushes to you and says, hey, you need to update it now. That's generally because there's a exploitable vulnerability in there. There was a really highly publicized vulnerability that a lot of organizations said, hey, you need to patch immediately, referred to as the Pegasus malware that basically, in short, all you had to do is receive a message on your iOS device to be compromised. You didn't even have to interact with it. So, that was a pretty big one. If you're up to date on your software now, you should be good. And I say should because we don't know what we don't know, and our adversaries are spending a significant amount of money on development of security exploits.
Thank you. We'll now hear from some of our panelists. Our first panelist is Fred White. Fred works with Greenlight Community Broadband as a network technician and has been with the company for 5 years. He was originally hired on as a technical service representative, where in this position, Greenlight customers would reach out when having technical difficulties with their service. Fred has since then moved over to the engineering team, where he works with others to maintain, improve, and troubleshoot any issues within the city's network or fiber infrastructure. Fred has had years of customer-facing technical support before starting his career with Greenlight, which has given him a solid background for serving his community. Joseph Bellucci is our second panelist. Joseph is 40 years old and he works as a technician project manager at Computer Central of Wilson. He spent 10 years in the United States Navy working on computer equipment. Since the military, he earned his associate in applied science and information technology from Wilson Community College. While getting his degree, he started working for Computer Central of Wilson and has been employed there ever since. Joseph routinely spends his days setting up network infrastructure, including wired, wireless, and fiber optic cabling at businesses big and small, even a full wireless solution for a town's government buildings. Joseph also helps expand the capabilities of residential networking. While he has been employed at Computer Central, he has also built and helped maintain over 100 different websites. Joseph helps keep Computer Central's clients safe in an online world that we live in by keeping computers and software up to date, while also completing daily vulnerability scans on any and all equipment connected to the network. Our third panelist is Ms. Susan Weekly, Instructor of Information Technology at East Carolina University and former Director of Information Technology at Wilson Community College. Susan is a Wilson native who has been in the IT profession for over 25 years. 10 of those years were in manufacturing, and the last 15 plus were in education. Susan has served in many different technology roles in the course of her careers, including IT director at 2 different colleges. After completing her master's degree in networking technology with a cybersecurity professional certificate, Susan has recently changed careers, going from maintaining technology to teaching technology. She now strives to share her 25 years of experience with up-and-coming students in the IT field, specifically in cybersecurity. She is currently working at East Carolina University as a teaching instructor in the Tech Systems Department. Susan likes spending most of her free time at the beach with her family. We will now hear from these 3 panelists with more information about how to give malware the boot, which is our theme this year. So for our panelists, we will start with Susan. Our keynote speaker talked about info stealing malware and showed us a few screens about what those that are working with this information on the dark web might see. So what are some things exactly that hackers do with all of this stolen data?
So Kendra, first of all, thanks for having me today. I'm excited to be back at Wilson for this event. And to answer your question, we saw a little bit about this in Alex's presentation about hackers want to steal this or sell this data for money. So basically it's for financial gain. We saw a little bit from Alex's presentation about the monetary gain that they got for the information that they retrieved in a hack. But I've seen some different information out on the internet where a credit card account with a credit limit of up to $5,000 might sell for 120 bucks. Or I've seen other examples like the same credit card with $1,000 limit might go for 80 bucks or something similar. So they can make, if you just think about stealing 100,000 records of something, how much money that a hacker could make off of that one score. So basically financial gain is what they're looking for 90% of the time.
Fred?
Thanks, Kendra, for having us, and everybody else for their involvement, and then Alex, our keynote speaker. I appreciate you. Typically, what those hackers are doing, they're taking your data, your sensitive information. As Susan said, they can use it for financial gain. They can also sell it to other, members of their organization, like Alex was mentioning. They'll do it for any number of reasons, as well as perpetrating fraud, or if the information is sensitive enough, you could come across a blackmailer.
Joseph?
Thank you for having me. One thing that I wanted to put out is not only is your information getting stolen, it's getting sold the first time just for the information. The person that buys that information is then using that information to get credit cards or, run up existing debt that you already have. And a lot of those people, like if they create a credit card account on your behalf, are then buying equipment or things that they can resell and make even more money off of you. So they're taking that one set of information that they got from you, or 100 people or 1,000 people, and using it to get so much more out of it, not just by stealing money that you have, but also creating accounts and buying and selling things for accounts that they have created as well.
Thank you. Fred, we'll start with you for the next question. We know that there are a lot of different types of malware, and they seem to be coming from all sorts of different directions. One type recently that we've read about is something called zero-click attacks. What can you tell us about zero-click attacks?
Zero-click attacks are kind of what the name suggests, they don't involve any interaction from an end user or the owner of the device. These types of attacks, they'll use data processing loopholes, and then use those data verification loopholes to inject or perform different attacks. Majority of the time, even the most basic zero-click attack will leave little evidence of its existence, may not be detectable, and therefore they're extremely dangerous to the community.
Joseph?
I want to point out what Alex had said earlier about the vulnerability with the iPhones is, or since it's been patched, is you could receive a message and you don't have to do anything with it and you are infected. And it's one of those things that you need to pay attention and get your security updates and install them when they come out to patch these known vulnerabilities. Because it's not necessarily something that you did wrong, but you haven't done the update to seal this loophole or this exploit to keep you protected.
Good points.
Yeah.
Susan?
Just to reiterate, patching and updating, you'll probably hear this a lot from me today. Anytime an update comes up, don't wait. I have students telling me they still haven't patched from the Apple update that happened in September for that latest exploit. So there's things that happen that you don't even know is happening in the background. And that's why these companies are putting out these patches and updates regularly. So just to reiterate, anytime one comes out, it might break something else, but it's going to be in your best interest to patch and update then to at least close that open hole.
Absolutely. Thank you. We'll start with Joseph this time for the next question. There are a lot of smartphone users that are very passionate about their choice of device. We have people who love their iPhones, people who love their Android phones, and occasionally users that don't have a smartphone, period. So smartphone users often debate which one is best, Android versus iPhone, and they also debate over which mobile phones are better protected against malware. So is it true that iPhones, as some say, are much less prone to malware than Android? Which is it?
Well, and it hurts me to say this as an Android user, that iPhones and Apple in general have done a much better job of keeping things updated and patching things as they come out, as long as you keep your updates going and done on a regular basis. And the reason for that is iPhones are, it's singular. It's Apple iPhones. It's all it is. It's the only device that'll run it, barring doing some magical stuff with other phones. Whereas Android runs, there's such a wide variety of devices that run Android, and it's harder to patch something that you have to do for the abundance of different phones that use it. So most cases when it comes to iPhones, it is possible to get infected. I mean, nothing is absolutely secure, but you get people that will like jailbreak their iPhone. If you jailbreak your iPhone and, start doing things because, you're a power user or what have you, you are definitely more vulnerable or more likely to get infected on that iPhone. Whereas if you keep it locked down like it's meant to be from Apple, it is a much more secure platform than, I would say, an Android phone.
Susan?
I don't think it's necessarily true that iPhones are any less prone to malware. I do think, like Joseph said, that Android has a larger attack surface. So there's so many different types of phones that run the operating system. And Android is also open source. So different manufacturers put their own spin on the software, which could make them a little more vulnerable than, iPhone or Apple, who controls the operating system and the device. So users have less control unless, of course, like Joseph said, they jailbreak their device. But I think that, you know, I said it before, it's just important, whatever phone that you have, you update and patch as often as necessary.
Yes. Fred, what do you think?
I think the panelists covered that pretty well. They're exactly right. I mean, you have Apple, who is managing and manufacturing the software development and the hardware, so they know the ins and outs of their product. You even have the App Store. When you have third-party applications that have to go through a rigorous process just to be presented on the App Store, that, you know, we put a lot of faith in Apple's you know, security team, and we should be doing all of the updates that they push out.
Thank you, Fred. For our next question, we'll start back with Susan. We hear about VPNs and using VPNs, especially when we are out and about or using Wi-Fi in places other than our home. So should everyone purchase VPN services? Why or why not? And how does a VPN protect us better from malware?
Okay, so let's start by defining what a VPN is. So VPN is a virtual private network, and it provides a secure tunnel back to your safe network over a public Wi-Fi or a public internet connection. So when you're in a hotel or when you're at Walmart or you're at Starbucks, you're using public Wi-Fi. So it's not smart to do banking or credit card information or putting your passwords in over a public Wi-Fi connection, because there may be people sitting out there scraping that connection, trying to, you know, monitor what you're doing so they can steal your information. So personally, if you're only doing like some simple web browsing over a public Wi-Fi connection, you probably don't need a VPN. If you don't have internet at home and you're using somebody else's internet to do some private things like your banking information or your credit card information, or you're looking at sensitive stuff, then you probably would be in your best interest to purchase a VPN. That's for personal use, but for business, I would definitely recommend utilizing a VPN just for the sensitivity of the business nature. So there's a lot of confidential things, confidential files that you're looking at. And me as an IT person, I would feel more comfortable if my employees were utilizing a private internet connection that I had control over when they're doing stuff on the internet that is business related.
Fred?
I don't think that VPN access, isn't necessary for everybody. Outside of an enterprise level, like Susan was saying, you don't necessarily have to have it. I mean, if you were trying to achieve maybe like assuming that you're in a different geolocation, then that could be achieved by it. But much like Susan was saying, having a VPN when you're on an open and public Wi-Fi is a really good idea. It will, securely tunnel some of your network traffic. But you also need to keep in mind that it's not going to stop you from being able to download any type of malware or Trojan or malicious software that is intended to pull sensitive information from you. And they should always be used in tandem with some form of antivirus software.
Joseph?
Yeah, I just want to piggyback on the geolocation thing. Some people will use it for saying they're a different part of the state or a different part of the country or different countries, especially when they're trying to view live sports or something like that that's not available in their local geographical area. Which, I mean, it's used for VPN, not necessarily what it was designed for, but I mean, you can use it that way. But a lot of VPNs also do offer some sort of ad blocking and things of that nature that come built in with the browser extensions. So I mean, there is some sort of protection there to block ads and you accidentally clicking them, which is a big way to get malware on your machine, but it's not necessarily something that is required. But I mean, it is something that it's nice to have. It does give you that extra layer of security for, you know, your end-to-end encryption of wherever you're trying to go. It also helps block your internet service provider for seeing what you're actually doing for whatever reason that you might have. But it doesn't stop your internet service provider for seeing the amount of traffic that you're pulling through that connection, which can, you know, cause red flags from them as well.
Thank you.
Mhm.
For this question, we'll start with Fred. Just about everyone uses some sort of social media to some extent, such as Facebook and Instagram. How concerned should we be about malware coming from social media, and how does that happen?
I think everyone needs to be as cautious and as vigilant as possible when it comes to being on social media platforms. I mean, the amount of multimedia or clickable links that are exchanged are astronomical up there. And it just increases the probability that you'll come across something that might be malicious, and you'll download it with maybe not true intent to do so, and you'll have you know, malicious software on your day-to-day device just pulling information from you.
Joseph?
One thing that I want to point out is, I'm sure, like, I mean, just about everybody's got a Facebook account or an Instagram account or something like that. Is you will have a friend, and then at some point in time, you'll receive another friend request from said friend. A lot of times people don't realize how much of their information is available just by doing a image search of your name. I can go online and pull, you know, an image that you're using for your Facebook account. I can create a Facebook account using the same name, use that image, and then you think, well, maybe they created a new Facebook account or what have you, and you add them as friends. Like, yeah, I've known this person, you know, 20 years. It's perfectly safe. And then all of a sudden they send you a message like, hey, can you go here and check this out for me? Or I saw this was really funny, and you click on the link, and next thing you know, you're directed to a website that infects your computer with malware.
Susan?
So some people in general are just happy clickers, and that gets them in a lot of trouble, and it might get us in a lot of trouble. And Facebook and Instagrams, they are just black holes for malware. So just clicking on an innocent ad that may look legit can get you in a lot of trouble. And some people just share personal information just because somebody asked them to fill out a survey for $100. So like Alex said a while ago, if it seems too good to be true, it typically is too good to be true. So we just have to be careful about where we put our credit card information in, what ads that we're clicking on. I would recommend not clicking on one single ad inside of a social media platform, just to protect yourself.
Thank you. We'll go back to something the keynote speaker mentioned, and that is saving passwords in your web browsers. We'll start with Joseph this time. It is so tempting for many people, especially students, to practice saving their passwords within their browser. So why is this practice discouraged? What can happen? What can we do to convince people not to do that, and what should they do instead?
So saving passwords in a password browser or in a website web browser is a big no-no. Yes, it's convenient, and you know, it seems like it'll save you a lot of time and all of that, but the majority of the time you can go into your settings into that web browser and just click the little eye icon and see passwords. No login required or anything. I have run across people that, you know, do actually sign into, like, you know, their Google account in Chrome, and if you do that, then you do have to re-enter that password to see those passwords that are stored in that web browser. But the majority of the time, it is not. It's very unsafe. And if you want to save passwords, then you need to look at doing a password manager, something that is specifically designed to do that, that has, local encryption. So even if, malware gets infected on your machine, they can't necessarily get the password stored in that database.
Susan?
So, like everybody said, storing passwords in your web browser is a very risky activity. So think about this. You've probably got your password stored in for your bank account, for your credit card, for, your shopping accounts for Amazon. And then I bet you also have those accounts linked in your favorites as well. So if somebody or if a hacker hacks your computer and they bring up your web browser, they know all your favorite places to go. And if you've got all those passwords stored in Google, they're already there and they know how to get to them. So that leaves you very vulnerable in a lot of different locations online. So if you must save your passwords, a local place is a good place to put them. There's a few different password managers that are stored locally, not on the network. That means they save them to your local hard drive, so only you and only your computer have access to them. So do not store them in Google or Firefox or any other browser just for that very reason. Storing them local makes it a little bit harder for a hacker to get hold of them.
How about you, Fred?
I agree. It's a poor practice. Everyone uses a web browser, which makes them extremely desirable targets. People will, make extensions for your web browser and use that to exploit the data that's stored within. If your passwords are up there, it's easy access, as well as what Susan said. You'll have links to your favorites. You'll have your passwords up there. It's just basically handing it over like candy. And I'll just reiterate what everyone else said. If you do need some form of a password manager, getting a standalone password manager would be the best route to go. Have a really strong and master password, and then maybe some form of multi-factor authentication with it.
Thank you. We have a couple of questions coming in the Q&A panel, so I want to make sure that we have some time to address those. Joseph, let's go back to you. Trying to be vague and without compromising any confidential information, are you able to describe a cybersecurity type of incident that you may have had direct knowledge of or been involved of, or that you recently knew or read about?
Absolutely. I see it more than I probably should or than would be expected in this day and age. But I had a client that had an employee that was what he would call himself he was really good with computers, so he says. And he would help his other colleagues with minor computer issues, what have you. But this one time that he had them install some remote software so that he could remote into their computer to help, and actually sent them malicious remote software. It still functioned as remote software, so he was able to do whatever he needed to do, but it also installed a backdoor for someone to remote into his computer, the computer that he had sent it to, and also being his computer was connected to network share drives. It also gave them access to their servers, both of them. And this resulted in his computer and I think 3 or 4 other employees' computers and the servers to both get encrypted, to all get encrypted. And the company was down for, almost a week. And they had to pay the ransom to get their files unlocked. And so it cost them a week's worth of business. And this was early on in the the crypto phase with like Bitcoin and all that. So I think they asked for like half a Bitcoin, and at that point in time, it was $4,000 or $5,000, somewhere right around that, to get the key to unencrypt their servers. The local machines, they weren't paying for that because they actually went through and used a different encryption for each device. So they paid to get their servers unencrypted. The other computers were complete loss. You had to wipe and reload them and get them back up. And it cost them a lot of downtime and money. And I think that employee learned a very valuable lesson that week, to pay attention to what he's clicking on and what he's sending to other employees.
Susan, is there one you can share?
Yes, and just to tell how long this has been around, this incident probably happened about 10 years ago. It was a ransomware event, and we lost about 25 years worth of company data in one department because we didn't pay the ransom. And by the time we found it, it had already encrypted the entire drive. So this user in particular had all of her corporate HR data stored locally, not on a network drive. And look, thank the good Lord that it didn't get into her network drives, but she lost everything on her computer, and it was about 25 years worth of data. And because it had been there so long, it had infiltrated our backups, and we couldn't get anything back from backups.
Fred?
Well, thankfully, I haven't had to had any type of direct contact or experience with that. But you read about it in articles constantly, all the time. I mean, big or small, your corporation, your organization, your company, it's at risk. Like, you have to be vigilant, and like Joseph was saying, with watching what you're doing, watching what's going on, and training your employees as well. I mean, just a couple of weeks ago, there was a incident with a major game development company where a person pretended to be a member of IT, and by social engineering got access to their communication portal. And they use Slack, and then also, it's somewhat like Discord. They just use it to communicate and send information. They were able to pull data from them, as well as they did the exact same thing that same week with Uber. So you just need to be careful, training your employees, watching out for phishing attempts and any type of social engineering, and just making sure that your employees are trained to spot some of this, and to take a moment, step back and look at it, and just investigate before just taking it at face value.
So Susan, we'll start with you for the next question. For someone who would like to make a career change into networking and cybersecurity, what degree programs, industry certifications, work experience do you feel is most helpful?
So there's many certifications that look good on a resume. ECU is recognized by the NSA as a National Center of Academic Excellence in Cybersecurity, and we offer undergraduate and graduate degrees in information security. We also have an active ISSA chapter here on campus. That's the Information Systems Security Association. So some of the courses that we offer here that would help make a career change are some ethical hacking, cyber infrastructure, intrusion and detection, wireless communication. Our fundamentals course, our fundamental security course, preps students to take the Security Plus exam. And so Security Plus is definitely a good certification to have if you're looking to move into the industry. We also have CCNA certifications, as well as Microsoft certifications. And we do have some Net Plus prep courses as well here. So all of those would look good if you're looking to move into the cybersecurity field. And we have just about everything you need here at ECU.
Fred, what are your thoughts?
I kind of just piggyback off of what Susan said. The IT field is extremely broad. You can find a knack or passion that you have, and you can search for a reputable group that has a good set of standards, or that set standards for said profession. Whether it be CompTIA, Cisco, AWS, Microsoft, or even some form of project management. But that will get your foot in the door with and get you real life work experience.
Joseph?
I think a lot of it depends on where you're moving from. Like if you're moving from somewhere that has, you're not doing any IT work or anything like that, I would think the best place to start would be, just to get your basic understanding. How I did is, get your, associates or whatever at for information technology, just the general overview, I think. But in my opinion, the best way to get knowledge is to find a company that you can work for that does what you want to learn. In my opinion, the best form of education is through, industry experts that have done it for many, many years, know the in and outs and trade secrets that can get you further along faster. I mean, you do learn a lot in school, but on-site learning, in my opinion, is the best way to learn.
One more panelist question. We'll start with Joseph. If you could give people only one piece of advice on staying cyber safe, what would it be and why?
One thing that we have briefly touched on and mentioned a couple times is multi-factor authentication. If there is a site or a program or app that accepts multi-factor authentication, use it. That way, in the event that your account does get compromised and all that, it makes it very difficult for them to actually gain access to that account without your multi-factor authentication. If people don't know what that is, it's like an app like a Google Authenticator that you tie with an account that comes up with a code that changes. I believe it's every 60 seconds. So you go to log into your account. It says, what is your multi-factor authentication code? You open up your app, you type in that code that I said expires in 60 seconds, and you get access. I think that's probably one of the best things that's come along for accessing secure accounts.
Susan, what would be your one piece of advice?
Well, my word to the wise is, Alex said it, I've already said it one time. If it seems too good to be true, it typically is too good to be true. You didn't inherit millions from that Nigerian prince. You did not win an overseas lottery for a ticket you didn't buy. You're not going to get $100 for taking a survey that includes your social security number. You just have to be careful where you click. Like Alex said, we are the link in cybersecurity. So we just have to do everything we can to protect ourselves and us in the field to protect others.
Fred, what would be your one piece of advice?
Don't take everything for face value. Just like everyone's saying, social engineering is targeted toward the end users. That it's majority of the time a solid way that they'll gain access to where they shouldn't or where you don't want them to be. Take a second to look at that domain, make sure it's spelled correctly. Or if you're confused or you're worried about it, look and see when the domain was registered. If it's not somewhere where the home base is of their operations, and chances are, or if it was recently, registered, chances are it's unsafe. Hover your mouse over links before you click on them so that, you can see where it's going to take you, so it doesn't lead you down to a path of inadvertently downloading some type of malicious software.
Thank you, panelists. You've done a great job. We have enough time to answer as many of the Q&A questions as we can before our time is up at 11:30. One question is, and any of the panelists or the keynote speaker are welcome to jump in. What is the impact of malware on devices that are part of the Internet of Things?
So in terms of the Internet of Things, that's really anything we're connecting to, the internet nowadays. Like I know my smart TV, it's not really a TV. What it is it's a computer that I can load a whole bunch of apps on so I can watch Netflix or, HBO or Hulu. And a lot of times, a lot of these IoT devices are running off of open source software. So a lot of times they're Linux-based devices, which is great because it's allowed a lot of really useful things to proliferate. But at the same time, it also allows adversaries to go ahead and understand how those devices are made and potentially exploit them as well. So really, I think when we think about Internet of Things, we should just think about computers and lots of different devices that didn't used to have computers. And just with what we're sharing over, our PCs or our smartphones, we should also be concerned, what's the information that we're sharing through those devices, and making sure that you're buying them from a reputable source as well.
Thank you. We have another question that says, can ad blockers help protect against malware?
Ad blockers, they're kind of a first line of defense. And I'm sure you've seen it whenever you go to a website and you'll get a pop-up to visit this other place, or even to add notifications from this particular website. And an ad blocker can most times block those kind of things. And if you really look at it, if you don't have that notification pop up for you to click on, then you're less likely to get malware from said ad, because a lot of times some less reputable websites that you may visit will target ads that you might click on to click to close and still get it. If you ever look at an ad, some of the less reputable ones will hide the actual X to close that ad. So now you click on that ad, and by simple of clicking it, you have in most cases given it permission to do what it wants to do. So I mean, an ad blocker in that sense can block some malware from getting on your computer.
They can help us save ourselves from ourselves.
The next one may be more of a comment than a question. It says that going back to mobile phones, it says that Samsung offers an enterprise model phone that implements Knox security software, KNOX, Knox, that other models such as the S models do not offer. So you may get a bit less quality camera or other options, but an increased level of security.
Now, like I said, I'm a big Samsung user. I've used Samsung phones for probably good 15 years. I think before that it was a Nokia brick phone. So I did have the Note 4, which came with Knox security built in. I think they recently discontinued the Note line, but that was one of the devices that did offer the Knox security software. But more often than not, when an average person is going and buying a phone, if they're getting a Samsung phone, they're going to get the Galaxy S line. That's their most popular. The more enterprise model phones aren't necessarily as widely seen by the public because they're not advertised. I mean, if it's something that you're looking for, you have to do your research and you have to know that that's what you're looking for to get that kind of phone.
Our next Q&A question goes back to VPNs, and this one gets a little technical. It's from one of our networking students in one of our advanced courses. He says that typically when you go to the Windows command line and you type in ipconfig/all, the output indicates a private IP address. Public addresses are what are sent over the internet per the coursework we have covered this year in Net 225. My question is, what is the VPN protecting if implemented on the end device, then sent to the router just to have a public IP address appended to the request?
So in short, what you're doing is you are encapsulating and encrypting your traffic from your device originally back to that VPN provider, and then it's going to get routed to your destination. So basically, you're adding kind of an envelope of security between your device and whatever your destination is. So what you're trying to do is protect against anyone in between the local device and your destination from being able to view those packets that are being sent over the internet or through an IP protocol.
Thank you, Alex. Another question goes back to our web browsers like Google Chrome, Firefox, and the person is asking, what are browser extensions and what are their purpose?
I see this a lot in over here at Computer Central because we deal with a lot of residential computers. Browser extensions are essentially add-ons to, like, say, Chrome or Firefox. If you ever seen the commercials for the coupons software, that you browse a website and it's going to give you a pop-up saying, if you use this coupon code, you can save 20% off whatever you're trying to purchase. That is a browser extension. Basically, what it's doing is reading the site that you're on, comparing it against a database, and seeing if there's any codes that have been used recently to save money on a item. Now, that would be a positive way to use a browser extension, but there's also many negative ways to use browser extensions. Not too long ago, probably about a month or so ago, we had a residential computer come in that she had gotten hacked. We looked at it for a day or two, couldn't really find too much wrong with it until we noticed all of the processing being used by Chrome. Because whenever they went through and compromised their computer, they installed a Chrome extension for remote access through Chrome. And that was how they were able to get back into the computer, even after she had, deleted everything that had installed. She missed that portion of it. We found it, removed it, and got rid of the remote access for that computer. So I mean, extensions can go both ways. They can positive and negative. Just like anything starts off as a nice gesture, and then people abuse it to do bad things. The extension itself wasn't malicious in itself. It was a recognized extension. It's just like a lot of hackers or call centers use like TeamViewer or something like that. The program in itself is not malicious. They're using it for what it's designed for. They have malicious intent.
Thank you, Joseph.
Mhm.
I believe we have sort of covered this earlier in the presentation, but one question is, are there any recommended security programs or measures like a VPN that you can recommend?
So one thing, I think Alex mentioned it in his presentation, there's a website called Have I Been Pwned? And you can I probably have 3 or 4, maybe 5 email addresses. You can go in and put your email address into that website, and it will give you a set of results that shows if that email has been compromised in any kind of online attack. So I think that would be a good place to start with for protection measures, and I'll let somebody else take the rest of the question.
Yeah, that's a great resource. It kind of gives you just an idea of what your risk level is. I think, generally speaking, a lot of work has been done on things like the software bill of materials, or where organizations are making software. So there are, certain antivirus providers that are not authorized for use in the federal government, and if it doesn't meet their risk tolerance, I definitely wouldn't advise that anyone else use those, because they called out kind of some specific risks. The same is probably true for hardware providers as well, that while your personal risk is probably not at the same threshold as, say, a state government or a national government, when cost is not that different, I would just probably opt to go for those.
Thank you. Another question, a lot of people just use Windows Defender if they have a Windows computer. And the question is Windows Defender sufficient for antivirus purposes, or is paid software advised? And I think we touched on this earlier, but just to recap,
Windows Defender is actually surprisingly a pretty decent antivirus program, but just like anything else, you have to keep it updated. So if you routinely do your Windows updates, then more than likely it's as updated as it can be. I mean, I've seen Windows Defender updates come through, 3-4 times a week. But as it was discussed earlier, a paid subscription is it's going to be a little more secure than anything you find for free, whether it be Windows Defender or AVG or anything like that. Just because you're paying for a service, and they're actually going to take those paying customers and service them before anybody else.
Thank you. Well, I have a few closing remarks for our event. Wilson Community College offers information technology certificates and degrees for those who are interested in learning more or who are interested in making a change to this high demand field with lots of opportunity for growth and salary. For more information about our programs, visit our website at www.wilsoncc.edu. Your attendance today means a lot to us. Thank you all for making our 4th annual Cyber Safe in the Gigabit City a success. We especially thank our keynote speaker, Alex Reinwald, our wonderful panelists, Fred, Susan, and Joe. And we thank Wilson Community College senior staff for their support of this event, and information technology and marketing staff for doing such an excellent job as always. Thank you for joining us today, and stay cyber safe in the Gigabit City.